Good afternoon. We wanted to welcome you to the 12 Points Center for Women, and today we're talking about financial empowerment for women who don't handle the finances. And I see people are trickling in, and we're just going to give it another minute or two to let people join us and get settled so we can not have to start over. So thank you. We'll give it another minute or so here, and then we'll get started. So I can see that people are still trickling in, but we're going to go ahead and get started. And again, welcome. This is the 12 Point Center for Women webinar on financial empowerment for women who don't handle the finances in their relationship. And here at 12 Points, we are passionate about helping women become educated and empowered around their finances. So we every month put on a webinar geared towards topics that are supportive to women. They might not all be financial topics, but check out our website and our resources tab to see what other webinars we have scheduled. But what we wanted to offer here today is some practical guidance and some support and suggestions on how to become more involved in your financial world if you are the partner who doesn't handle the finances. And there's my boss calling me. He'll have to wait. So today I'm hosting here with Tracy Hartford, and my name is Deb Cartisser, not Dave Clayman, but I am here to talk about this topic, but also in general, look for our articles on support for women. We have one specific to this webinar this week, and so look for that under our blog information. But I'm a senior advisor here at 12 Points. I've been doing this for 30 years. I have helped many clients through multi-generational wealth transfer. I do complex planning. I do particularly estate planning for families who want to avoid some taxes and things along those lines. But I also really am passionate about helping women gain financial empowerment. It's so important. Our industry has not always been kind to women, hasn't always involved them, and we want to make sure that we at 12 Points change all that. So I'm joined here with Tracy today. So Tracy, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hello, good afternoon. Tracy Hartford. I am a wealth advisor here at 12 Points. I love working with professionals and families gain clarity and control over their finances. What I'm really most passionate about is really helping women feel more empowered and more confident about some of the financial decisions in their life. So giving them that confidence, bringing them that peace of mind so that they can really have that long-term financial well-being in their life. So that is what I enjoy doing, and I'm excited to be here today because this topic is very near and dear to me as well.
So I want to make sure that people know that you can put questions in the chat. If we can integrate those into what we're talking about, we definitely will. Otherwise, we'll have them answered at the end. So feel free to put your questions in there. And afterwards, we can send out the webinar recording and our resources information. So don't feel like you have to scramble and take notes on this.
So the biggest question is, why does this all matter? So as many of us, this should be no surprise, this first stat is that 70 to 80% of the women will outlive their partner. So it's really important. There's some key points that are key for women: providing financial security and independence. Understanding your finances gives you that sense of security and that sense of independence, because we will live longer, most likely, than our partners. there's also this great wealth transfer that everyone continues to talk about. It has been a very long time, and actually never before has women come into millions, trillions of dollars that will be in our hands, where it's been in the side of men for a significant portion of our lives. And we're moving into a time of our lives where women will have the greatest holdings of wealth in our career. So getting women prepared for that, understanding the numbers and not being left in the dark is super critical. Another piece is just promoting that shared decision-making process. In your household, it's your shared goals, it's your shared assets, really having that shared voice about what you do with those assets and how you plan around them is really important to have women involved. And again, it's that protection for when life changes happen. It's not if, it's when. Something will happen to each one of us at some point in our life, making sure that we are all prepared for that, knowing where things are, knowing how we need to react to that so that you're not caught in the dark. That's super important. And it's really not just about math. It's really earning that security and freedom for your life. You don't have to own everything. You don't have to be the one that manages it all, but you certainly do need to be engaged, and you need to know how to get involved, or at least understand some of the basics of your household finances.
So I want people to think a little bit about where they are now. And I'm all about sort of personal growth and development. And a big piece of finances and money is sort of inherited from other people. So what has stopped you in your life from becoming involved on the financial side of your relationship or your household until now? And we're all busy, so if you stop at busy, you haven't delved deep enough on this question, but really, what are the things that have prevented you from getting involved? And looking at those things, those barriers that have stopped you, and what can you do to get around them? I think that's really important. And thinking about this topic is about what emotions come up when I think about money. I talked to somebody who said, you know, money has always been dirty to me. When I was younger, I would have all these men propositioning me and trying to buy me with money. So money has always seemed dirty to me. Well, that's really important to know. It's really important to look at that and say, you know, where does this influence how I handle my money? And looking at your background, so much of our approach with money comes from our parents. When I was a kid, when I was really little, it was dad's paying bills tonight, shh, shh. It was a stressful time, and you didn't want to upset the apple cart or him. And so money was stressful, and I didn't know why, but it's something that I carried forward. And they also acted like, because they were children of the Depression or shortly thereafter, it was really about scarcity for them. So I look at myself, I've never been brought up in scarcity, but I have this scarcity identity with money, and I had to look at that and figure out how to move past that. So what beliefs about money do you have that you're ready to shed? And take a little time for yourselves, journal on it, about it, you know, when you're driving to pick up your kids or whatever. Think about these things and think about what changes you'd like to make, because money is about power, and it's not about control, but it is about power. And the more you can do to empower yourself around money, and the topics about it are going to help you tremendously as you go along. But a self-understanding is the key place to start. So what happens when you're not involved? I've worked with many widows over the years, and I get two different phone calls. One is a little bit more matter of fact, giving me the information that their spouse has passed away and that we've got to make some changes, and how do we start? And the other is a really memorable phone call, because I never want my clients to feel this way. But I pick up the phone, and sometimes they identify themselves. Sometimes it's just choked sobs on the other end of the phone. And I immediately know that their spouse has died. And I immediately know that they're feeling, of course, grief-stricken, but more than that, they're feeling afraid and they're feeling overwhelmed. And it's really, really hard to take people through that piece of time. And it takes them about a year to get to where they feel comfortable and confident. But we're overcoming two things. We're overcoming the loss of their spouse, but we're also overcoming their complete lack of involvement in their finances. And that's, so we're working on two things at the same time, and that's often really hard. But so what happens when you're not involved? Let's skip the conversation about losing your spouse, but I've had conversations over the years where people who didn't participate have told me, one was really memorable. She said, I found a lease in the drawer and realized my husband's been having an affair for years. Well, she would have found out a lot more quickly had she just looked through their bank account statements every month and known where her money was going, because he'd been paying this. I didn't know because it was coming out of the checking account, but he'd been paying this for years. And so it's not only stories of regret and stories about being duped. It's really about, oh, my husband thought this particular thing that we're spending on is more important than I think it is. And I really don't think it's important, and I want to talk about that. So it's having that voice, it's having that ability to have agency in your relationship with finances and in your relationship with your spouse. So don't wait by feeling left out. Start participating now, and just learning the lay of the land is going to help you significantly. So if there's one message that comes through in this webinar, it's don't wait to be forced to get involved. Choose empowerment now and start. So it starts with a conversation with your partner.
Yes, and how do you have that conversation with your partner? There's many ways. A lot of women feel like they don't want to feel like they're being judgmental or trying to take control. It really can be just as simple as being curious. I think talking about your shared goals with your partner, where are you now with your assets and how are they set up so that you can meet these goals? Or maybe there's a natural prompt where something has happened in your life, maybe a friend's spouse passes away. It's a great prompt to say, hey, if that situation were to happen to us, are we ready for that? Do you know where things are? Do I know where everything needs to be? And start to have that conversation. I even have some folks that do what they call a date night. So they go out once a month and they talk about a money topic. It doesn't have to be a deep dive into spreadsheets, but really about, maybe you're talking about your goals, something that you want to save for, something that you hope to do, maybe a retirement goal that you have and you want to talk about together. Or maybe it's a news topic that's coming up in the news about Social Security and things like that. Have that conversation and bring curiosity to the table and get your partner's perspective on that. That in itself is a way to be part of the conversation. Another piece is to be a part of those financial meetings, whether it's with your CPA or it's with your financial advisor or someone that's doing insurance policies for you. You don't have to, again, control it or be the one that manages it, but you have to know what's happening. And it's even as simple as, I can't make that meeting, but can we talk about the results of that meeting? Or if you do get to attend that meeting, keep a financial journal, keep some notes, understand, because you may not understand everything that's happening in that meeting, but it's a great thing to bring back and do some research on your own so that you can understand it in your own terms as well. Most importantly, know where things are. Where are your accounts? How are they titled? Do you have estate planning documents? What's in them? I mean, assuming you signed them, do you remember what they are and have they been updated in the last 5 to 7 years? So understanding where things are and how you can best be prepared. So if something should happen, you know right away where to go. And do you have that information shared somewhere? In our household, I have what we call, we laugh about it, but it's my book of passwords and logins and accounts. If something happens to me, just know to look for that notebook in my house. I won't tell you guys where it is, but that's what I tell my husband, is know where that is, because I run all the finances in our house. And where some might be the husband that runs it, in our house, it's me. And so it's making sure even he knows where is that stuff, because if I get hit by a bus, the life still has to go on. You have a family to pay for, to cover, to know where things are. It's really important that everybody that's involved in that household knows where these key documents are. And setting up a personal goal. So you're not going to tackle all of this at once. We're not asking you today to go out and just start getting a list of all these things. Set yourself a goal saying, you know what, in the next 90 days, I'm going to know what our monthly spend is. Does anyone here know what they spend on a monthly basis, on an annual basis? Maybe it's simple of, I'm going to track what's going in and out of our account each month. Or this month, I'm going to understand where we have all of our accounts. Or in the next 6 months, I'm planning to attend our financial advisor meeting, or I will go to the tax prep meeting so that I can be more informed. Again, not to take control of it, but just to be in the know is super important.
So I've spent a lot of my career helping people through this stage of transition. So they've lost their spouse and they have a lot to do. And there's a lot of work to do. It's sort of, I think of it as a full-time job for about a year. So the first thing that you need to do is work on assembling your team, and that is making the phone calls to your advisor, your financial advisor, your tax preparer or CPA, and your estate planning attorney. So someone wrote your documents, they can help you. These people can also help you through this next phase. So this is a really obviously trying time in your life. I've also found that people have no memory of our conversations. So when I work with somebody, it's their notes that come to them after every single phone call, and we're working on one task. So what we do at 12 points is prioritize the work that has to be done. So there's one thing coming at you at a time. And our job as the financial advisor is to prioritize that and help people through. So make sure you're using your team that way. And if you don't have a team, now's the time to get one. And choosing a point person out of all these people, the most obvious point person is the financial advisor. They typically don't charge by the hour. You're paying a fee to work with them, but they're not going to incrementally increase because of the time spent with you. Typically, it's a good thing to check out. The CPA and the estate planning attorney do charge by time spent. So every phone call, everything that you do with them is more money that you're paying out. So consider that as you go along. But pick a point person, and through that person, you communicate. So you're not making 3 phone calls, you're talking to one person, and they're disseminating the information to the others and really helping you all function as a team. The thing that you need to do is to gather your documents. Hopefully one of the people on your team has them, but if not, getting your documents together and getting them to your team so that everybody knows what needs to happen next. You're not going to know, but they do. So rely on them to help you through the re-registration of accounts and moving money and stepping up the cost basis. Those are all kind of things that happen behind the scenes that you should not have to be directly involved with. But if you do, it's all going to start with your documents. And then paying bills and accessing cash. When Tracy was talking about knowing about where your money is, knowing what's coming into your accounts at every month and what's going out, this is the paying bills and accessing cash portion that you're going to have to do pretty much immediately. And often this takes place outside of your financial advisor. So this is happening through the bank and your online bill pay. So knowing how to get into all those accounts, having your own accounts that you have access to so that you can keep things running. You want to keep your household running, you want to keep your bills paid, and this is a critical part of that. So as you're moving through getting to know your finances better, making sure that you know where all the accounts are, where all your sources of income are, all the things that require monthly or annual bill pay need to be part of this. So that's a big part. And then tracking everything. Like I said, when you're in this state, you're not going to have a good memory. It doesn't mean you're losing your memory. It simply means that you can't hold it all together all in one place the way you did when you weren't grief stricken. So making sure that you have a system for tracking your notes, tracking your progress. When I help people, we have a spreadsheet, and every single line item in that they have is on that spreadsheet. And then where are we with it? What's happened last? So I keep notes on all those things so my clients don't have to. But if you're doing this on your own, making sure that you know where those things are and what you're supposed to be tracking. So you can even start that with your list of accounts and everything else that you have. So go easy on yourself and get help. That's the most critical part of this time in your life. So when you're partnering with your financial advisor, when you're not in the state of crisis, if you're married to someone and you're not the one who's controlling the finances, have your own meeting with the advisor. It's not to say that you want to talk about your spouse. It's not to say that you want to run things differently. It's just to have your own session so you can understand things, ask questions. I have clients where both people attend, but in one of my couples, the husband always overrides the wife. And it's just sort of how they go, and it's okay, but she sometimes doesn't get her questions answered. So I focus particularly on her and making sure she doesn't get railroaded out of the conversation. So just making sure that your voice is heard. You can express what it is that you're concerned about. It's really typical for couples to have very different risk profiles. One is more of a risk taker and the other tends to be more risk averse. Is your perspective being heard? And then as they work on forecasts for you, as they look at retirement and saving and spending and those kinds of things, are your goals being met? Are they being looked at as part of the overall family picture? And, excuse me, sorry about that. Making sure that you're asking questions about things that you're concerned about or things that keep you up at night. You know, how would my plans change if I were widowed? Or if something happens to my spouse, where do I have sources of income? Is there life insurance coming to me? Making sure that you know how you're taken care of and what's set up for you. Excuse me. And then if you are widowed or divorced, start all over again. You can be with the same advisor and say, you know what, I want to start from scratch. I want to talk about how I want things to look, what I feel like I'm concerned about, what I feel like I might have missed or might be missing in the work we've done together. And it's just a simple way to start fresh. And you can start fresh now. You don't have to wait until you're divorced or starting over on your own. It's really a matter of taking the time to make that appointment and have those conversations. And then we talk a lot about values-based planning. So it's not just, am I going to have enough money, but it's really, am I going to meet the goals that I want to set for myself? Are my dreams being talked about and addressed? And are we prioritizing the things that I want to do with my money? So this is so much more than numbers. It's making sure that you get to set up the life that you want to create and that your goals are being incorporated, that you have singly as much as what you have as a couple. So, and if you do have to go through widowhood or being divorced, you're starting a new vision of the future and making sure that you're spending time thinking about that and making sure that you're having those conversations with your advisors to talk about what it is that you want to shift or change or do differently in your life. That's all really, really important, and making sure that you're taking that time to have your voice heard separately is important. So I would encourage everybody to have those separate meetings.
Ongoing responsibilities. So really things that are important to do throughout the year, not just when something happens, but really always look at your beneficiaries. Make sure those are updated because your life changes day to day. Look at those at least on an annual basis. And if you're working with an advisor, they're helping you to take a look at those. But even on your own, make sure that all those updated beneficiaries are done, especially for older. I find I meet with a lot of folks before they join our firm that they have a lot of old 401ks or retirement plans spread out everywhere, or life insurance policies that they bought at a much younger age. Now's the time to take a look at those and refresh those every year. Make sure that what's in those documents is updated, including your trust documents. A lot of people say, yes, I did my will, I did my estate planning, my trust documents. Take a look at those on a regular basis and make sure that you read them and that what's in them is still true and actual. And there's documents in there that do need to be updated every 5 to 7 years. We see power of attorneys. People think that once you do it, it's said and done. It is not. Those need to be updated every 5 to 7 years. So really take a look at those documents. It doesn't mean you have to redo everything, but you do need to make sure some key documents are updated and that your beneficiaries are updated there as well. Tracking your monthly expenses. Know what your baseline is. It doesn't have to be down to the Starbucks coffee you bought yesterday, but you really need to have a high level view of what you're spending as a household on a regular basis. So I track this in my household on a monthly basis. I've done it for the last 10 years. For us, it's super helpful to understand all of the bills that we pay, all the credit card statements we pay off each month. What does that add up to the end of the year? And how does that change year to year? I will tell you that that is the single most important piece of your retirement, is if you don't know what that number is, you can't confidently retire and know that you have enough money. So I think that's an important piece that I tell all of the clients I work with, and even friends that I'm not working with. track that. It doesn't mean you have to track every single detail, but know at a high level, what do you spend on a monthly basis? That will be super insightful and actually might help you from buying an extra thing on Amazon that you don't need. Learn how to read your statements. Take a look at our statements. Many times we just shred them, or at least I shred my things, but take a look at your statements. What's on them? Your retirement statements. How are your investments doing? How are you invested? Because many people sign up for their 401k plan on day one of their job and they never look at it again. Take a look at how you're invested. How are your funds doing? Is it invested in a way that aligns with where you are in your life and what you're doing? Are your beneficiaries updated in that document? What are the fees that you're paying for the services that you're getting within these statements? And then the last one is just understanding how each of your advisors charges. How does your CPA charge you? How does your attorney charge you? How does your financial advisor charge you? Take a look at that, understand that, and if you don't understand that, then reach out to someone that can help explain to you what is in your statement. That's really important for everybody to understand that, and not just turn a blind eye and just shred it or throw it in the garbage. There's some really important information there that can be helpful to you, especially if something's incorrect, to make that correction sooner rather than later.
So some of the tools that you can use now, understanding where your money goes is really important, because like Tracy was saying with the Amazon example, how much is going towards different areas in our life, and is that what we want to do? My husband asked me the other day, we were talking about doing something for our 25th anniversary, and there was a place I'd always wanted to go, and he looked it up and it was $1,800 a night. And I said, you know, that's just not how I want to spend my money. So understanding how you like to spend your money, where it's going, and making sure that those are deliberate choices that you're making, because lifestyle slide happens to all of us. And, you know, you're paying for things out of convenience or ease, but maybe they don't mean anything to you. So understanding your budget is really critical. There are some banks that can, I think Bank of America still does an annual categorizing of your expenses. That's really key. Some people use one credit card for the year, pay it off every month, but it categorizes their expenses. So they're using that to do it. Then there are budgeting apps that you can get to keep on your phone and keep up to date. YNAB is You Need a Budget. Monarch Money is another good one. There used to be Mint that everybody used, but they stopped operating. There's Good Budget, Pocket Guard, and Honeydew, and these are all different ways to budget. And I'm going to tell you that a great way to see which one's best for you is to go to NerdWallet and look at some of their resources. I talk about NerdWallet, I think, in every webinar because I love it so much, and it's just a super way to get up to speed on a particular topic. If you don't know something, chances are NerdWallet's written an article about it, and they're terrific. So whether you're selecting a credit card or a budgeting app, head over there and they'll describe them and talk about the different features of each one. So another one, as you're planning for retirement, tracking your net worth. If there's nothing else you do on your statements, get a sense of what the total is for your statements and know from month to month or quarter to quarter, how is it tracking? I know the market's gone up 2% for that period. How did I do? How did my accounts do? And track that net worth. Empower is an app that can help you with that. It also focuses a little bit on saving for retirement. So that might be a great way to just keep your information together. And then people have debt. They have things that they want to pay off. I can tell you that everybody talks to us about paying off their mortgage. Typically, this is the least amount of interest that you're paying on all your sources of debt. So start tracking your net worth. Your debt management, and understand what you have out there, the premium that you're paying or the interest rate you're paying on each piece, and then organize it by the highest interest rate and pay that off first. So for debt management, You Need a Budget has a component for that. Undebt It is another app that will help you track and shift money over to pay some of these things off. So they have a little piece where, you decide not to go to Starbucks for coffee, you can shift that money over and put it towards something else. So it's kind of a cool, fun way to do it on the fly. And Rocket Money has another way of tracking debt. That's also a budgeting tool that can help you as well to categorize your money. And again, NerdWallet, is just a great resource. Finding credit cards that have the lowest rates or have the best member services or have the best travel resources that you can get from using those things. Make friends with NerdWallet. Have your friends, your kids introduced to NerdWallet because it can help them too, but it's sort of a great go-to spot. And then keep your expense logs from year to year. Once you start getting a sense of where your money's going, keep track of it. And I think for some of the work that we do, we have couples that run and individuals that run the gamut, the spectrum of, we know exactly what our budget is, we know how we spend our money, and others who say, I think I spend about this much. Well, the couples and families that we can really help are the ones who really have a sense of where their money's going. If we're winging it, then we have garbage coming into our projections and garbage going out. So as a foundational thing, knowing where your money goes is critical. So another piece of all this is protecting yourself. So we all know that we're vulnerable to hackers. They can come from everywhere. And understanding some of the ways to protect yourself is really important. I had a client who was very, very sharp. She happened to be a widow, but she was very savvy. She wasn't the kind of person who gets taken advantage of. And she was very involved in her financial world. And she called me and told me the story one day about how she was duped into putting money into a box and sending it somewhere because she thought her grandson was at risk. And what these people did was they took money, information from her husband's obituary, and they got to know her grandchildren's names. They did a little research, figured out where one of them lived, and they scammed her. And they did it by overriding her, savviness with emotion. And so once she realized that her grandson was in trouble, or thought he was, she was willing to do anything to help him out. And they had all kinds of information that made her really think that this was the case. So she went to the bank, she withdrew $40,000 in cash, and her community bank let her do this. So I was horrified that she didn't call us. And then I was horrified that the bank let this lady walk out with a wad of cash, not asking her what she was doing with it. And so stay on top of these things. Know that anyone can get scammed. Know that your intellect can be overridden with emotion. So in your family, if this ever happens to you, have a question that you would ask somebody like this, like, what was my nickname? What was your favorite comfort item as a child? And have those things in there, and have a little word that you would say to know that it's really you. Obituaries are a real source that people go to scam others. So don't put a lot of private information into an obituary. You can communicate the fact that someone you love has died, that they lived a beautiful life, without putting all your family names in there. And the other thing is, when you do have a wake and it's published in the paper, make sure that you have, or services of any kind, make sure that you have somebody staying at the house. Get a neighbor to come to your house, have somebody be there with the lights on and things moving around, because people go and gather this information and rob houses. It's a common thing that happens. Clean up your digital presence. Make sure that you're not obviously putting information out on Facebook or whatever with your family pictures saying, we're in Aruba and look how cute we are. You are adorable. Post those pictures after the fact. Make sure that you're not giving out information. Make sure that you're not putting your kids' birth dates out there. Post after the fact. We celebrated so-and-so's birthday, and it's not today. Making sure that your participation in all of this is going to reduce your vulnerability. And it's not, as I said before, about trusting your spouse. It has really more to do with the fact that you're being heard and your preferences and your thoughts are being represented in the conversation. And yeah, you can find things out about what's happening with your spouse by looking at your finances, but it's really more about making sure that, yeah, you have a dream. You want to live on a lake someday. You want to make sure that you take your family on an incredible epic trip. Whatever those things are that you want to do with your money, maybe it's helping your community center. Maybe it's making sure that your favorite charity is somehow represented in what you're doing. but those things are yours as an individual and they may not be yours as a couple. So your participation makes sure that those things are heard and addressed. And then having an emergency plan as a couple is really critical. So how would we access money if something were to happen? You know, a tree falls on the roof. Where are we going to get that from? What happens to it? If something happens to me, do you know how to access all those accounts? If you've got Tracy's magic notebook, you do, but you've got to create the magic notebook first to make sure that you have access to that. So making sure that you're addressing those things, because as we talked about before, it's not a question of if something's going to happen, it's a question of when and how. So making sure that you're prepared and that you're both talking about these things. Yes, it's sometimes maudlin to do it, but if you can just sit down and put an hour or so into this and then update it on a regular basis, that's really critical. And then making sure that the people who are appointed in your documents, in your will, as your power of attorney, that somebody else knows where that folder or where that file on your computer is, or the magic notebook. So having all those things together is going to help you quite a bit. I promise you, you'll sleep better.
I know we're just over time, so we'll run through these last couple slides that we have, but a key part is knowing when to find new professionals. Are your professionals listening to you? Do you feel like you're being curious, but you're not getting the response or the information that you need? It may mean that it might be time for a new advisor. We know that we come across professionals that are right for us at a certain point in our life, and there comes a time where maybe they are not the right fit for this new stage in our life, and it might be time for a change. So if you ever feel like you're not being heard, they're talking numbers and not about life goals, they lack communication or responsiveness, it may be time to change and you've outgrown your current team, and that's okay. It's really important because you deserve to feel heard, confident, and supported, not dismissed and overwhelmed. So don't be afraid to take a look and talk to others and explore your options if you feel that where you are is not the right fit for you or you and your partner, because it's really important to make sure that they're a fit for both of you, not just one of you. And then owning your financial role. Deb, if you want to hit on this one, or if you want me to touch this one. I think Deb's frozen. So owning your financial role, you don't have to make decisions alone. You have professionals that you can lean on. You can talk and be curious with your partner. It's really important to make sure you have those conversations. And ask your professionals to teach and not talk over you. Be very specific about the questions you have. And if you feel that you can't get that within that conversation with your spouse, then have a separate conversation. Follow up with your advisor, with your CPA, and please ask those questions. You should always feel like you have a voice at that table. And even if you can't say it in that meeting, or you're afraid to say that in the meeting, do not be afraid to talk to your professional and ask those questions on the side. That is completely okay and within your right. And it's okay to say, can you put that in plain English? In our roles, and even in each of our industries, wherever you come from, there are acronyms and words that you use that you get used to saying all the time. So don't be afraid to say, can you explain that to me in a different way? Can you explain that to me in plain English? And that is okay. You are paying for that service. You're working with these professionals for a reason. Ask for it in plain English. You ultimately are the steward of your family's future. It's not just one spouse's future. It's not just your future. It's your collective future, your family's future. So make sure that you have that voice at the table and that you can be involved and you're able to speak about things that are important to you as well. And then our final reflection, just know that you're not behind. You're stepping forward at exactly the right time. You want to be able to ask the question, what do I need to understand next? Who do I want on my team? If you're not feeling you're in that right spot right now in your life, now's the time to take a look at your options. But don't ever feel you're too late to get to that table or to be part of that conversation. You deserve that. And Deb is back.
Sorry about that. And then the other thing that we offer at 12 Points is a second opinion. So if you are unsure about your finances and you don't know if things are being addressed the way you want them to be, come through our second opinion service, contact Tracy, contact me, and get an opinion on what's going on with you. And we can point out things that we see and see if there are any problems. So in terms of questions, we've got a couple of questions here that have come in. The first is, can you recommend a credit monitoring service? And one of the ones, again, go to NerdWallet, my favorite people, and see what they recommend there. But one that I've used and had recommended a number of times is Aura. And there's an app. You set it up. It's a little time consuming in setting it up, but it polices your accounts. It can offer oversight to your young children. It's super helpful. So AURA is one that we recommend, and check that out. But look at the recommendations. They change year to year. And as long as you've got something there, it's going to help you quite a bit. And then another question, and this is kind of an interesting one. What do I do if my spouse doesn't want me involved? So I wrote an article about having that conversation with your spouse, and it'll be on the blog on our website this month. So check that out under our resources tab. But start looking at things yourself. Get access to things. Reinforce to your spouse that you're not doubting them, you don't have any distrust, you just want to understand. So can they help you understand? And start in a specific area if you need to. But also, I would behind the scenes also start looking at, where is our money going? Do I understand these things? So you have trust but verify is how I would say that. Making sure that you know what's going on and that you have a good sense of where the money's going. Contact your financial advisor. Don't say that you distrust your spouse, obviously, but just talk about wanting to have a meeting by yourself. So I would start in those areas and then talk about how you want to become empowered. This isn't like you're undermining anybody. It's not like you're going to come and take over. It's simply you wanting to be educated. And so I would start from those things. If things get heated, I'd diffuse the conversation by having it at another time, finishing it up later, but making sure that you're talking about this from the framework of empowerment and understanding, not about control and changing things. So hopefully that's a good starting point. And yeah, read the article. I think it'll help. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to send out this data sheet that we have with resources. We'll send that to everybody, and we'll send it to everybody who registered. And if you have questions, contact Tracy, contact me. We'd be glad to help you out or answer more specific questions. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.